Welcome to the question and responses. Now, let's get into it. Question 1 from German Shepherd Mom. Is it possible to cure insomnia? 100%. If you look at the human being, we've got an automatic nervous system, and every human being has this system, and it controls all the automatic functions, but it's in two parts. One part keeps you alive under stress, the other part regenerates tissue. When you're in a chronic stress state, that means that your body is in this fight or flight mode. It's called the sympathetic dominant state. And insomnia is one of the most dangerous conditions out there because literally sleep is when your body regenerates. So what you have to do, there's 3 things you have to look at: physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress. Physical stress you can identify on a static and stress x-rays. You can look at a posture analysis to see if the posture is off. That'll indicate that there's some type of physical stress contributing. Chemical stress is poor sleep, but also poor diet and medication use. Because medications, literally, some could be life-saving, and a lot of them are just prescribed for a stress response, such as blood pressure, cholesterol, and type 2 diabetes medications. So look at the chemical stressors, and then look at the emotional stressors. Now, we teach a number of different techniques, such as diaphragmatic breathing, neurolinguistic programming, heart math breathing. I mean, there's a number of different techniques out there to reprogram that brain, because when we're in a chronic state of stress, your brain starts to fire that in those stress responses all the time. So looking at insomnia is not a problem, but it is an alarm of an underlying stress state. And you only have physical, chemical, and emotional to address. Once you address those, then look at our sleep restriction videos. And this is like hitting a reset button on your brain. You've got to prepare your mind for sleep. So this means journaling and reading. Journaling, you're going to write down what you did that day, what you're going to do the next day, and any emotionally charged event. Now, this works on my patients who have like Parkinson's or MS. You can't read what they're writing, but the fact they're thinking a thought, putting a mark on a paper, calms that subconscious. Then read a paper book 15 minutes before bed. This calms down the brain. Make sure it's not anything interesting, like no Zane Grey novels. I grew up with those. Those are amazing. But something boring, okay? Absolutely no TV, no cell phones, no iPads, no computers before bed. That does 2 things. One, it emits a blue light, which limits melatonin production, but also passively staring at a screen puts your brain in a beta wave state, and that is a stress response. So journaling, reading, realize that your brain or your body goes through these 90-minute cycles called rapid eye movement. And this is when your body is in, almost a coma, where most of your energy is going for that cell production or regeneration. When you complete that 90-minute cycle, your eyes open, then they close. And if there's any light source, and I'm talking enough light to see your hand in front of your face, bam, that fight or flight system kicks up, and you got to get up to pee or roll over because you're uncomfortable. And that's the biggest contributing factor, is not understanding what sleep is. That sleep is the regenerative period of your day. Sleep is the most important part of your day. So resetting that circadian rhythm, it's a 3-week-long exercise where you're going to change your habit patterns. So check out our sleep restriction videos, but address the underlying causes of insomnia, and you will see the solution in about 7 days if you're addressing everything correctly. And let me know how you're doing, German Shepherd Mom. Now, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share and comment below. And please share this life-saving information because we can change the world. Question 2. What if you're too tired to move? I'm from Tim Stir. Okay, this is uber common. Okay, when you're in a chronic state of stress, your body is drained. You have no energy. You have no incentive. And the same thing, there's 3 stressors: physical, chemical, emotional stress. When you're in a chronic state of stress, you have no ability to regenerate. So when I'm talking to patients, I say, look, You're going to notice differences in back pain, neck pain, things, but that's not important. What symptom you're experiencing at the moment. The real challenge is the fatigue, the anxiety, the stress, because those are the limiting factors. So you are describing the number one condition that 100% of people come to me are experiencing. And they'll say, no, I have tons of energy. I just can't sleep. I can't do this. No. I mean, you've got to address the underlying causes of the physical, chemical, and emotional stressors. So realize that your body is in a chronic state of stress. And that means that we have that automatic nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic, stress and regenerative. You are in a chronic state of stress. So just break it down. Look at the physical stress, and that's identified on a static and stress x-ray. Look at the chemical stress, which is poor sleep patterns, because that is the number one. I mean, when you're talking too tired to move, when do your bodies regenerate? Well, it's at nighttime. And it's kind of like if you walk into a room and it's dark, you don't call the power company. Okay, you look at the light switch, then you look at the light bulb. If someone's fatigued, that means you're not regenerating at night. And people will come to me and say, oh no, I sleep fine. I get up a couple of times at night to pee, but then I go right back to sleep. No, that's crappy sleep. So address the physical stressors, address the chemical stressors, which is poor diet, toxic food, medications, and poor sleep. And then look at the emotional stressors. By addressing all of those, then your body is going to have energy. And you're going to be waking up like you did when you were a kid, excited about life, with tons of energy, looking forward to the next day. So you've got to address the emotional stressors, the chemical and the physical. And then you're going to realize that your body is adapting correctly with that chronic fatigue. And I know that sounds crazy, but when you're in a chronic state of stress, your body just gets worn down. Your mind gets worn down. You get beaten down. So look at your body is responding correctly based on the stress. This is the end result of a chronic state of stress. And then your body will regenerate. Absolutely. And you will get your energy back. But Timster, let me know how you're doing. Question 3 from Boomay. I need help really bad. I wish I could do something about all this. I can't use the bathroom. I'm stressed, tied up in knots. When we're looking at every patient, the first thing I ask them is their metabolic response. And, we do a lot of tests. We're going to do the x-rays, we're going to do thermography, nerve scans, live blood cell analysis, and people in their entrance form will write down all the symptoms they're experiencing. Number one, and the symptoms are going to be back pain, neck pain, bowel disorders, constipation like you're experiencing, all of this thing. And I will ask them how many bowel movements a day. And they'll say, well, I'm doing a lot of herbs and things, and I'm up to 1 every other day or 1 a day. No, 2 to 3 healthy bowel movements a day is huge. So when you look at this, when you have low bowel function, and bowel function is controlled by that automatic nervous system, the parasympathetic, resting, digesting, and repairing. And it is located in the cervical spine and the pelvis. So when people are talking about altered bathroom habits, I say, take off your shoes. And when you see that big toe leaning towards the other toes, because the big toe should be leaning away if you have a normal nerve supply to the foot, to the intrinsic muscles of the foot. And so when you see that big toe leaning towards the other one, I know they got a pelvis trauma problem. And that's going to be because the pelvises are perfect. That means there was actually a falling on the butt or chronic states of sitting or a lumbar issue or a problem with the thoracic laterally deviated. It means that there is a problem with that resting, digesting, and repairing. If the pelvis is perfect, if the foot is perfect, and I highly doubt that, Boomay, then look at a cervical spine. There's going to be a loss of curved forward head carriage, but it means that you have an alteration in your resting, digesting, and repairing. And this is the central nervous system. And that gut, the entire gut function, is under parasympathetic or rest, digest, and repair control. So this is a nervous system issue in a chronic state of stress. Addressing the physical, chemical, and emotional stress, and you're going to see that be corrected. because your body is intelligent and your body is responding correctly based on the stimulus. And your body right now is in a stress state, and your parasympathetic nervous system, rest, digest, and repair, is altered. Look at the underlying problems, and then start looking at your diet. So I'm talking, I mean, diet is cool. You know, if you add fiber to your meals, each meal a day, that's going to be fantastic. That's going to help with gastric motility. But that's only one factor. Understanding that your rest, digest, and repair is altered, that parasympathetic nervous system, identifying the cause, and it's only going to be physical, chemical, or emotional stress. And then you're going to have the solution. And you will get better, my friend. Question 4 from Himalatha. I'm a single parent from India. We are very poor. Due to a childhood trauma, my 34-year-old son suffers from negative thoughts, stress, and anxiety. He has a degree, but he cannot work due to his mental issues. He does not seem to have any health issues because of the advice in your videos. He is not taking medications, thank God. And he has a healthy diet of vegetables, fruits, and vegetable juices. How can I help him? When we look at negative thoughts or anxiety or stress or depression or schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or impulse control, okay, or also called attention deficit disorder, all of these are features of the frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe is controlled by the cerebellum. And the cerebellum, that's a little brain in the back, gets its input from the position and motion of the vertebrae. So if he had some type of trauma in the past, and what I would ask him, did he have ear infections as a child? Because ear infections typically are an upper cervical trauma. So that means that he could have been traumatized during the birth process and it not being recognized. So we have to look at the input to the cerebellum. So that means looking at the entire structure. That means static and stress x-rays. Then we have to look at the gut-brain connection. It's called the gut brain or the enteric brain. So vegetarian diet's fine. I mean, and you are going to get, vegan diets are going to be deficient in B12, but in vegetarian diets, you can get animal proteins from dairy or, dairy insects. Some cultures will do that, but you have to have that healthy animal fats from the dairy, which is the most common, particularly in India. Now, get fermented foods. Fermented foods are going to be incredibly important to replace that gut bacteria and make sure the vegetables that you're eating don't have pesticides, because those pesticides can actually damage the gut flora. And so organic fermented foods, get him up to 3 healthy bowel movements a day. Realize that he's going to have a sleep pattern problem. So look at our sleep restriction videos. That's going to help. And look at our structural analysis. And that's going to clue you into the x-rays that I would want to get on him to find out if there's a structural component. But then when you get the gut handled, the input to the cerebellum or correcting the physical stressors, then we have to reprogram the brain. And that's going to be huge. So look at diaphragmatic breathing, look at heart math breathing, look at neurolinguistic programming, because when the brain has been firing in a stress state for so long, it becomes wired like that. And this is hugely important because it's just like if you practice anything, if you're practicing tennis 10, 8, 12 hours a day, you're going to get better at it. If you practice a stress state of mind 10 to 12 hours a day, you're going to get better at it. So falling in that stress state of mental adaptation, okay, is a practice thing for his brain. So he is very good at achieving that state of stress. Very, very good. So now he has to reprogram that brain. And that's why I like neurolinguistic programming, because every human being has around 90,000 thoughts a day. The problem is 95% of those thoughts are the same you had the day before. So all thoughts fall in patterns, kind of like dominoes. Like one thought will hit another thought, will hit another thought. The greatest skill that he can develop once we're addressing the breathing, the sleep patterns, the physical stressors, making sure his guts gets healthy, then he's going to recognize his thought firing patterns and realizing that neurolinguistic programming, which I love, okay, once you recognize those patterns, that's when you reprogram it or reinstitute a new firing pattern of that brain, where you're literally going to be body posture, volume, intonation, breathing. I am healthy, I'm dynamic, I'm vibrant, I'm accurate, I'm brief. Now, the frontal lobe learns through repetition, not belief. So he doesn't have to believe it, but to now, instead of doing that mental programming by keep rehearsing the anxiety and stress thoughts that he has, he's going to start to re-imprint the new firing pattern of where his brain is going to be fired and wiring together in a chronic positive state. I know, chronic positive state. So this way, literally, when you master your emotions, you change your physiology. And just think of the yogis. They can meditate and they can raise or lower their blood pressure. By mastering your emotions, you change your physiology. And then that's going to help to get out of that sympathetic dominant or stress state into a parasympathetic or a balanced autonomic nervous system state. Because that gut, which is called the gut brain or the enteric brain, is literally under parasympathetic control. And that's since he is in a sympathetic dominant state, and that's physical, chemical, emotional stressors. Address all of those, and then he can start to appreciate and enjoy life again. And I'm with you. It's giving advice, but trying to communicate to him. And it's hard when people are in the dark pit of hell of anxiety, stress, and depression. So tell him that it's not a brain thing. It's a chronic state of stress. And it really helps people who are in this dark pit of hell to take an x-ray and identify the physical stressors and say, look, this is your body adapting. You're also going to see a leaky gut. And this is where neurotransmitters are produced. So to help him understand that it's not a mental defective thing that he has, that his body is really, and brain is really adapting to the chronic state of stress, is going to empower him incredibly. And God bless you. I'm with you on that. You know, being a parent, you love your kid, and there really is no quick solution. But the greatest thing that you could tell him is that his brain is adapting correctly to the chronic state of stress. We address the stressors, then his mind is going to open up to the beauty of life. Because when, a couple of people are looking at a sunset, they can see beauty and colors and joy and the Arabic term subhanallah. Okay, it's just gorgeous, and he won't see that. So breaking him out of that chronic state of stress, he will experience life again, and I'll help in any way I can. God bless you. You're a great parent. Question 5 from Isva Heidi. Is it possible to cure autism? Absolutely. And I'm going to do a more detailed explanation of this in the censored comments on the Dr. B VIP, because we can't, with the censorship currently, we can't go over the causes of autism. And there are several causes. But autism, look at it as brain damage. And if it's brain damage, the brain can repair. Just know that you know people that have had damage to the brain, like a stroke or an aneurysm, okay? And they lose either speech or they lose physical control of their body. And through neuroplasticity, which means the brain can start to adapt, the brain can generate new neurons, the brain can generate new connections called angiogenesis. It can generate new blood vessels or blood supplies. And the brain can adapt. Then you got to look at the gut issue. And this is why when you look at all the forums out there that talk about autism, they talk about a gluten-free, dairy-free diet. And there's some great studies on that, because the gut is where neurotransmitters are produced. And when these people are they're in a chronic state of stress, that means we have that automatic nervous system. Sympathetic means fight or flight. Parasympathetic is rest, digest, and repair. So these people are in a chronic state of stress. Then we have to look at the brain itself. The brain only weighs about 1 kilo, but it burns 90% of the body's oxygen and 30% of the body's calories. And it creates its own food called cerebral spinal fluid that's produced in the middle of the brain at this beautiful plexus, and that fluid flows around the brain, down the spinal cord to give nutrients to the spinal cord. Now, if there's a loss of curve in the neck, so this is why we've got to do a structural analysis, then that fluid, that cerebral spinal fluid, cannot drain correctly, and pressure builds up inside of that cranium. And you will see on this child, or on anyone with autism, the plates of the skull come together. There's a big frontal bone here, but the parietal plates come together, and in the middle it's called the sagittal suture. Now, the outside covering of the brain, called the dura mater, actually invaginates up through this suture. And when you just touch the top of the head, it's going to be very, very sensitive in autistic people. And it's going to be hot and inflamed. And that indicates that there is an inflammatory process going on. Now, inflammation is actually how the body is trying to heal it. And people call it encephalitis, which just means that the brain is inflamed. But in order to have the inflammation, and remember, inflammation is a healing process of the body, it means that there was tissue damage before. Like when you see inflammatory foods, what that really means is these foods are actually damaging tissue and creating the inflammatory response. So inflammation isn't a dragging, attacking you. It's the response to tissue damage. So if you look at autism as literally damage to the brain, and putting that beautiful human being in a chronic state of stress, then we have to heal the brain, and that's through symmetrical movement. And this is one of the things that autistic kids are trying to do with that self-stimming behavior, because movement generates dopamine, and they're in a stress state, so they're trying to generate that. This is where the head banging comes from, because the heads are in so inflamed, and it hurts, and just to bang it to get that pain will stimulate endorphin production, and some of the body can produce a pain reliever 40 times more powerful than heroin under pain, and they're in so much pain that by causing pain to themselves, it actually has a relief effect of the chronic state of stress that these kids are in. And a third of my practice is under 12. And most of those have some type of neurologic damage. So there is solutions for it, but you got to look at the physical, chemical, emotional stressors. And I can't go into all of those stressors in this format, but you can help them. How much can you help? It really depends. Like I had a few years ago, one of the videos that was deleted because of censorship, this couple identified damage to their child very, very early. And they immediately changed the diet, gluten-free, dairy-free, started to give the kids some fermented foods. And one of the things, to get fermented foods in these autistic kids, it's very, very hard. They have extremely picky diets. And they're gonna look at like mac and cheese and pizza because of the gluten and dairy in there, or gluten and casein proteins, has almost a drug because it hits opioid receptors in the brain. So the gluten-free, dairy-free diets are going to be very, very challenging for the parents. And this couple, this parents, God bless them, they got them immediately off of that stuff. Look at coconut yogurt, which is great because that will help it. There's even frozen coconut fat-based ice cream with healthy bacteria. And, here, buddy, you got to eat this ice cream, so you could get the bacteria in their gut any way that you can. Open up prebiotics or probiotics on their favorite foods. Shift to gluten-free, dairy-free options for the first couple of years while the gut heals. The guts can actually heal in just a few months, but we have to get them out of the stress state. And by introducing bacteria, getting them out of the stress state, and doing cross-crawl activities, you can start to get that neurogenesis. And you're going to see they're not going to be able to swing their legs correctly. This is why we put ankle weights on the kids, depending on their awareness and ability to move. And they can be helped. It is a challenge, but absolutely. And I'm going to answer it in greater detail in the member site. Now, if your question wasn't answered here, please visit the drbvip.com site. And this is where we can get to more detailed answers because we're free of censorship there. God bless you all. Stay healthy, my friends. You are designed for this world, and the world was designed for you.